be broken in pieces. When the truth comes out, when the truth comes out, you can run, but you know it's ending.
Hey there, friends. Here we are. It is Friday. It is another week of JennX, truth be told. And I've got to be honest with you. This is another week where I genuinely thought I was going to be able to hop on and we could have some sort of fun conversation, some lighthearted stuff, maybe talk about football, playoffs, go Broncos, go Patriots. You know, my house is a divided household. I live in Colorado, but I'm from Rhode Island, so I'm a huge Patriots fan, but my little guy was born and raised here, and no, he's a huge Broncos fan. And then you've got my husband who's a, Kansas City Chiefs fan because he's from Missouri. So anyways, football is a big thing in our house. My son plays football. He's a wrestler. This is the kind of stuff. Sometimes I want to talk to you guys just about life and all the good things, but I said when I was going to do this, and the reason I called it JennX, truth be told, John 8:32, talks about, telling the truth and the truth will set you free. And right now, unfortunately, there's a great disservice being done on the internet and this happens on both sides. Please know I'm not coming in here and attack a liberal media kind of way or attack the liberals. I think there are far right extremists. And I think that there are far left extremists that do some pretty horrible things, and they just outright lie and don't represent the truth. And a lot of what we get ensues and creates this chaos that is 10 times more out of control than it needs to be because we're believing the lies. We're believing the bullshit, right? We all fall into it. So that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to kind of sit and let's have a sit down coffee talk. Let's have a sit down with Jesus and kind of talk about what's going on. It would be great if we could get this out into the world and get back to finding our common sense, our common decency, compassion, a way to have conversations with one another and be able to deal with one another. So I made a little list, some few topics that were in relation to what's happening in Minnesota, which I think is also now infecting the country. It's not just Minnesota. Some things that are taking place because of the Renee Good shooting, but I think that this has been going on far beyond that, okay? I think that this has been something that has been an issue and a problem for quite some time. So if we were to get into it, let's just start with, for me, one of the biggest problems that I'm seeing with everything is how the people that are governing us, how they're handling this, right? So we can get into this starting with, there's the initial debate of people want to talk about, was Renee Good murdered, or was Renee Good, did she suffer a consequence for the choices that she made that day? Now, for those of you that follow me on TikTok, you would know where I stand on this. And there's a difference between someone suffering a natural consequence of a choice that they decided to make when they woke up that day and me believing that someone deserved to die. I can't imagine. I'd be hard pressed to imagine someone being in a situation where they deserve to die, right? I feel like there's justice systems. I feel like there's ways for people to have consequences for their choices, good, bad, or indifferent, that don't need to result in death. But sometimes if you put yourself in a precarious situation, sometimes that ends up being the case and what ends up happening. And I felt like from my position, my point of view is that I spent hours that day when this happened. It's been, a little over a week now since that happened. And, I watched it over and over and over again. And people keep talking about how he was in front of the car, but it's because he put himself there. And, we can all have hindsight 2020 looking at the situation from a spectator's point of view, but none of us knows what it was like, one, to be Renee Good and be in that front seat and go from being a woman who, from her perspective, I think she thought she was going to go out and be a professional agitator. This is a woman who literally entered her 6-year-old into a school that has an anti-ICE program. They train people to go out and disrupt ICE, right? So that's part of her mission. She's part of the LGBTQ community. And if you say, Jen, why does that matter? Because since she entered into that community, if you look at the parallels, if you look at her life and the things that she was doing, and if you take a peek at, how she lived her life with Timothy Macklin when she and her 6-year-old son, how she lived her life with her ex-husband before that, and she had 2 children. She was not an activist. She was somewhat reserved. She was a poet. She loved music. In high school, she sang in the choir. She lived a very different lifestyle. Then, and I've always believed that People that live their entire adolescent and adult life as a heterosexual male or female, have heterosexual relationships, are married. She was married once, not once, but twice. She didn't have one but three children. And then one day just decides that she's going to be part of the LGBTQ community. I feel like people in that situation, almost every time when you talk to them, there's been some sort of trauma or some sort of abandonment or some sort of something that made them feel lesser than. And this was a group of people that drew them in and they felt welcomed and accepted in this community. I am hard pressed to believe that Renee grew up and always felt like she was attracted to women. I don't know. We can't ask her that question, right? Because she's not here. But my point of all of this is she went from being a very calm if you listen to her family's interviews, this was not her nature to be an antagonizer, to be an antagonist, until she got connected with this woman, Rebecca Good. Okay. She was not her wife. They were not legally married. Everybody keeps calling her her wife. They were not married. And when she entered into this relationship with her, she got very extreme, very radical. She moved out of the country. She moved to Canada in 2024 because President Trump won the election. And so she had more of an adamant belief to leave this country, knowing that she was leaving children here to support her wife in her abandonment of her family in order to support her politics and her political nature and to stand up for their anti-Trump beliefs, if you will. I would have a hard time leaving my children here just simply because I don't like Donald Trump. I'll be honest with you, they're coming with me. So for some reason, those children, her other two children, were left behind with their dad, their biological dad. And she took the 6-year-old with her. Now, sadly, her ex-husband, or actually he wasn't even her ex-husband. So here's the other thing. She was still drawing on his death benefits. Her husband, Timothy Macklin, he actually passed away. And they had been talking about a divorce, but they never got a divorce. And so she was widowed, okay, when he passed away. So I guess the reason why I bring this up is for some reason that morning she woke up with the intent. She had the intent. Intention is a lot. It means a lot in the law. It means a lot in court cases. It means a lot when a judge is thinking about what happened, when a jury is thinking about what happened. Sometimes it has a difference of a level of degree of murder. Was it murder one? Or was it premeditated? Was there an intent there? Or was it an accident, a heat of passion, things like that. And so for her, she had the intent not to die that day, but she did have the intent to go out and agitate. Now, why I get so frustrated with what happens on the internet and why things can expand into something that is so, when that shooting took place within seconds and minutes, it's this poor wife and mother, and she was just trying to get into her driveway, and she lives in the neighborhood, and she got caught in the chaos of all that was happening. That's not the truth. That wasn't the truth. And now people have had to retract statements. News stations have had to go on and say, hey, I apologize. I've seen TikTokers be like, whoa, maybe I said the wrong thing because I didn't have enough information. As a society, we struggle to be quick to listen and slow to speak. We just want to respond emotionally because we're pissed off or we're fired up or we're hurt or whatever we think it is. There were so many people from the LGBT community that, it was just ridiculous and gross behavior where they're like, she was murdered because she was queer. Listen, nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit who you're sleeping with. That has nothing to do. And it definitely doesn't mean the consequences that you lose your life because you're queer. She woke up that day with the intent to be an agitator. She was a legal observer. That's what they called themselves. And they would go out to these situations. They would bring bullhorns, whistles, all kinds of things to deter ICE, to warn people that ICE are coming. They were anti-ICE. They would, excuse me, they were throwing snowballs. She specifically was using her car, traffic's going this way. She put her car this way to block traffic, to not allow people to get through, which those people were ICE. And then towards the end, she started waving people through. But if you watched all the video, because after about a week or so, I've been accumulating all these videos. And if you watch it and you fully study it, you see she was agitating. She was getting in their faces. They were screaming. They were yelling. There were other people there throwing snowballs. And, ICE is trying to catch people and they're falling on the ice. The irony of that. And people are thinking that that's funny. Nobody ran over to see if that person needed any help. These are people, whether you like it or not, were hired by the federal government to go out and do a job. And, she didn't like the job. She didn't like what they were doing. She didn't stand for it. So she wanted to protest it. There is a way to do that. Doing it, there's a difference between standing across the street and speaking your hearts, speaking your mind, yelling and, across the road, standing out there with your picket signs, standing out, however you want to do it. But when you start getting in and you're impeding an investigation and you're trying to warn offenders that they're coming and you're blowing whistles and you're blowing bullhorns and your people were putting their hands on ICE agents, they were getting in their faces. And then it got to the point where finally she was blocking the road and then the ICE agent comes up on her. Now, from his perspective, I don't think he woke up that morning going, I would love to take the life of an agitator today. I think like any other profession, they want to get up and just be able to do their job. This was not a man who's just been hired to do ICE in a rush. This is a man with decades of military, high-level clearance in the military, and was brought into ICE because of his level of intel and other things that he's worked in his history and all the other things. Now, we have to keep in mind, back in June, this man was drugged by a vehicle 100 yards. That's the length of a football field, and had 30 sutures put in his arm. So that day, I think you had two people very heightened in emotions. You have an ICE agent who's trying to do his job, and he's being antagonized on an intense level. And I'm not talking about right at the car. I'm talking about the entire morning. And then you have a woman who I think she went out there with her intent to agitate. And then I think it got real serious when they started pulling on her car door and they're like, get out of the car. She didn't want to get out of the car. When an officer tells you to comply, things will go your way. When you are told to get out of the car, things will go your way. Let me give you an example. Let me show you what complying looks like as opposing to what not complying looks like. This is what happens when they get to deal with this. Here we go. Hold on.
The front and the rear license plate attached to the vehicle.
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
That's why I pulled you over.
Yes, ma'am.
You have your driver's license and insurance.
Yes, ma'am. I also am a concealed carry licensee. My firearm is on my right hip. My license and insurance and information is around my neck. Can I get it for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Not a problem.
Here's my concealed carry license. It's the new one with the indicator CCL right there on the top.
Okay, I got you.
I'm a firearms instructor. I'm a former cop too, so I teach people this stuff. But I've been waiting to actually show this is what you to do on the traffic stop.
You're good.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
Make sure you get that taken care of for me, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for being professional. I love it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I love your backup right there. I love it. Yes.
Do you see how that worked? Do you see his smile when he left? Do you see how this was not a conflict? Do you see how it wasn't get out of the car? Because everything that she asked him, he complied to. In no uncertain terms should Renee Good have not answered the questions, not got out of the car. When she was being told to get out of the car, she needed to get out of the car. At this point, she had done enough things to be disruptive and be breaking the law and doing all the things that she was doing that morning. She should have just got out of the car, and she didn't get out of the car. Now, while she's in the car, she was being calm when she did talk to the police officer, the ICE officer, and she said, she was just calm at first, and then she's got her wife. We'll call her a wife, but she wasn't her wife, her girlfriend, her partner, whatever you want to call her. And she's circling the car and she's antagonizing the cops even more. She's got her phone. She's getting in their face. The cops are trying to get Renee out of the car. The other cop is walking around the car. I don't think he was positioning himself to be run over. This is what they do. This is a setup. This is the way cops stage themselves to prevent someone from evading the law and from leaving, is they put themselves in positions all around the car. And that's what he was doing. Okay. And so as she's getting heightened, because now she's getting a little bit nervous and she's got this one in her ear, drive, baby, drive. And so she just goes. And when she goes, she hits him. Now, a lot of people have talked about like, oh, he barely got hit or he didn't get hit. Let me tell you something. Every video that I've watched, you can clearly see that the man was hit with her vehicle and he was hit significantly hard enough. And I'm also going to say you have to remember what's going through his mindset because he's already been drugged 100 yards by a vehicle. So we can't decide. We can't be the judge and jury. One, she's gone, so we can't get her perspective, but she's feeling oversensitized because she's got people yelling at her over here. He's feeling anxious because she's 1 minute she looks like she's coming at him and then she's listening to this one over here. It was not a good situation, but then she throws that car in reverse and she floors it forward. In no uncertain terms should she have been leaving the scene. She was being told to get out of the car and did not comply. Okay? He ends up getting hit. Now, a lot of people are saying, I love how the mayor of Minneapolis is like, oh, it was like getting hit with a refrigerator door. It wasn't even anything worse than that. The man did end up going to the hospital. He did get diagnosed with having internal bleeding in his upper torso. And here's the thing. I'm just going to tell you something. A lot of people are like, well, he was just walking away just fine after that happened. The amount of adrenaline from literally just firing a firearm, okay, from just shooting your gun is an adrenaline rush. I know this. And then on top of that, being hit by a vehicle, having an injury, that you get what's called, and this happened to me. I went on a bachelorette party. I was on a four-wheeler. I hit a high-profile rock. I went down a hill and I hit a tree at 40 miles per hour. I ended up in the trauma unit. But in the first 11 minutes of that accident, this four-wheeler flipped over on top of me. I had bruises everywhere. My legs were popping out of my jeans. They were so swollen. My jeans were ripped. My adrenaline was so high. The doctors in the trauma unit said I had what's called Superman syndrome because I picked up that four-wheeler like it was a toy car. I lifted it off of my body by myself. The people in my group were like, whoa, 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 sit down. What are you doing? And then I turned the four-wheeler over all by myself. These were not tiny kid four-wheelers. These are the big, heavy, very heavy four-wheelers. But my adrenaline was so insane. And then within 15 minutes, I crashed. I was bawling. The intense pain that I was feeling made me vomit and almost pass out. And I ended up in a trauma unit. So when people get what they call Superman syndrome because of a high adrenaline situation, it happens. And I think that's exactly what happened to that gentleman. He just got hit by a car. He just fired his firearm. There's all kinds of chaos going on. You've got people screaming over here. You've got people throwing snowballs. It was insane. Do I think she deserved to die? Absolutely not. Do I think it's unfortunate that she didn't choose to stay home that day and wait for her son to get out of school if she didn't have any work that day, that she didn't go out to a park or spend some time with her girlfriend and go to lunch or go to breakfast, that she decided inserting herself and impeding an investigation made more sense to her? I'm very sorry that she chose that, but that's the reason behind why she ended up with the demise that she did. Now, there's a lot of other arguments going on about ICE itself and the ICE force. Let me just say something, and I want to speak into something here for a minute. There have been many people that have said there are well, let me just play this. Let me play this for you. This is my least favorite person on TikTok. I genuinely can't stand this guy. But anyways,
training of new ICE officers and the use of AI.
I'm gonna rewind that.
We have some serious news that everyone needs to know about, so spread the word. According to NBC News, ICE made a major mistake regarding training of new ICE officers and the use of AI. So ICE has been using an AI tool to determine whether or not individuals are, quote, law enforcement officer trained, essentially new recruits who had already been law enforcement officers. If a new recruit had been a law enforcement officer, they only needed to do 4 weeks of online training. The typical ICE training is 8 weeks of in-person training, including how to use a firearm, immigration law, and more. Well, their AI program, according to NBC, just flagged the word officer and moved anyone with the word officer into the online shortened program instead of the full ICE training. That meant people who were compliance officers or people who said that they wanted to be ICE officers were automatically moved out of the full 8-week training. And
now, I don't know how much of this is true, but this is the most bothersome thing. Whenever you see Aaron Parnas, he's always like, breaking news. If Donald Trump has hemorrhoids, he's like, breaking news. So it's kind of become like the boy that cries wolf, that you're just like, is it really breaking news? Or did they just come out with a new bubblegum flavor? He just gets on my, and he's so liberal biased, it's just gross. But, you see here, breaking, ICE makes major training mistake, blah, blah, blah. He goes on and on with the whole thing. Listen, here's the deal with that. Do you think nobody is taking account for, and there may be an influx of ICE agents that have been put on the road, and maybe there are some of them that have not gone through the typical 8-week program or whatever. Maybe they were officers. I'm not 100% sure. But I'm just going to tell you something. The fact that people are more concerned and they're afraid that they don't feel like these officers have been vetted, because they were unvetted, as he puts it. And you've seen other multiple people saying, how can we put so many unvetted agents on the street? How could the last administration put 20 million unvetted illegal aliens on our streets? Why does that not bother you as an American more? If I have a choice to make, and I've got to choose between an unvetted ICE agent and an unvetted Somalian or an unvetted armed man who's coming over the border, who's in his 30s with no children, no grandmother, no nothing. And he's just coming over here and he does not appear to be seeking asylum or looking for a better life for his children. Where are his children? Have they been trafficked at this point? Who's to say? But if those are my two choices, the illegal immigrants or the unvetted ICE who has the heart to go out and fight, and they are getting some training, but maybe it's not the training that they all need, we wouldn't need to have the influx. We wouldn't need the budget we need for ICE and to amp up this part of the federal department if you weren't angry about the fact, and if we didn't fight back in the last administration about the amount of people that were allowed to come into this country. That should make you mad as an American. And how it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me that you're upset about unvetted ICE agents who are trying to remove the criminals off the street, yet you're okay with the criminals being let in. Now, listen to me. If any of you have watched me for any amount of time, for you people that have the attention span of a gnat, or you've watched a 30-second clip of mine, or you've taken a sound bite, sit down and listen, because this is my perspective on that. There are many immigrants within this country. I feel the backbone of this country has been built on immigrants, and there are thousands to millions that have come here legally. Now, when you talk about, well, not everybody has the ability to do it legally, I agree with you. I think that there are some mothers that have literally swam a river with kids on their backs and came over here with nothing. So you know what I would love? I would love to need less ICE agents. And I would love that the money that we're putting into that, or the money that we're putting into supporting illegal immigrants who don't belong here, who haven't been vetted, into a fund. You know what would be nice? A lot of these people can't obtain an attorney. They do want a better life for their children. They do want to be able to provide for their kids. They do want to pay taxes. I think it's cruel what this country does. And the people that are taking advantage, you're so upset about them being deported. Why? Because you lost your cheap labor? I think it's grotesque what these people get paid working here in this country. I've seen it. I've been in Vail, Colorado. I've lived up in Summit County. I lived in Eagle, and I would see so many people. They lived in this one little community in the valley pit of Vail, Colorado. Billionaires go there to go skiing, and these people are getting paid $18 an hour to change your sheets, and they're living in these tiny little trailers because they're illegal, and you feel good paying them that? You want me to feel bad for you? I don't feel bad for you. Those are the people that I wish we had some sort of system within this country where if someone came in here and they were vetted, no criminal records, and they are, if they could be legal citizens, would be productive citizens and add to our society. You've got people that are trying to come over here that are highly educated, that bring a lot to our communities. And I'm telling you what, they're not stealing American jobs. A lot of them aren't stealing American jobs, because I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of these jobs that they're doing that none of you people would get off your ass and do. Okay? So I'm okay with them being here, but this is what I think they do have to do it legally. And so why is it we don't have something set up, a grant program, maybe not even a grant program, a loan program? Let's say it costs $5,000 per family member. So it's $15,000 a year. I mean, a family, for the family of 3. Why can't you give them 12 months or 18 months, help them get the documentation, help them learn the language, do all the things that they need to do to get naturalization in this country? And they have 1 year to 18 months to pay back that $15,000. It is a stipend that is removed from their paycheck. They can work legally, they're paying taxes, and maybe they're paying $100 a month or $150 a month. It's a low interest loan, or maybe we wouldn't even charge them interest. We don't need to be making money off them, but we don't want them taking money from us. Maybe it's very low interest. Who's to say? I don't know. But you're telling me that the powers that be, the people in our government, can't come together with all the money that we blow on all these other foreign nations for stupid bullshit like Sesame Street and Iran? Are you kidding me? I would much rather see it go to a fund that helps illegal people that have been vetted, that we would love and enjoy to have in this country, be provided for, and then they can return and pay it back. I actually think that they are prideful enough people. They don't want a free ride. They're hard workers, the ones that I've worked alongside. They're not looking for handouts. I'm more concerned about the ones looking for the handouts and the ones that are flying under the radar and are trafficking children and are trafficking drugs and are sexually assaulting women and are raping women and murdering women and killing men and killing children because they're driving without CDL license and they're driving without legal licenses and they're driving drunk and all the things. All the things. That seems like such, I mean, guys, I'm not a genius. I don't have a college degree. I'm a realtor. I went to school to get my real estate license, and that's what I do by trade. I work in sales. It doesn't take a lot to come up with a plan. I actually think that's a pretty great plan. And then they pay back this country for what we loan them up front to come and begin and start a life. And here's the thing, they have a consequence. If they don't pay it back, just with every loan, if you buy a car and they give you 5 years to pay it off and you don't pay the bill, they take the car back. If you have a program where you have so much time to pay back the loan that was given to you, to pay for your lawyer, to do the papers, to take the classes and do all the things, you're deported. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? I mean, that doesn't seem overcomplicated. It doesn't seem complicated to me. I'm okay with illegal immigrants coming to this country and becoming legal. They are illegal the minute they step foot over that border without having any kind of documentation. So how as a country can we come together and help the people that do want to come here and better this country, yet vet the ones and keep the pieces of shit out? How do we do that? So right now, because we had an administration where nobody could knock their heads together, you're telling me there's not one person like me in the administration that can come up with some sort of loan program for these people? We're just throwing fucking billions all over the world. Come on now. Give me a break. Let's be real with one another. This is basic math. The math's not math in how you're doing it right now. I'm tired of supporting all these other countries that are not coming alongside us or doing anything to build up America. They're just putting their hands in our very deep pockets. And now when President Trump is like, we're done being the Bank of America, literally, all of a sudden we're angry at him, but we're not angry for the people in this country that are suffering, our veterans and everything else. Listen, I could go on about this for hours. And so the reason that there are so many, if you will, unvetted ICE is because we don't have enough bodies to track down 20 million unvetted immigrants. And while they're trying to do their jobs, you have jackwagons who are going out and heightening them even more, throwing shit in their faces, doing all that. You want to tell me that this is peaceful protesting? Come on, do me a favor.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
That's literally an FBI vehicle that are in. They're stealing the weapons. They're stealing the car.
Here's some bullets.
There's some bullets. Do those sound like people that are concerned about their Hispanic neighbors or their Honduras neighbors or their Somalian neighbors? Do those look like the people that have a cause? Or do those look like the people that have an agenda to hate Donald Trump and hate this administration and push back against this administration? You're not doing anything for your immigrant neighbor. Also, let's talk about that for a second, because that really tans my hide. When I see all these GoFundMes for people like Renee Good and her wife or girlfriend, whatever she was, is going to benefit from this. We'll see how much the kids get. And now she's hired the same attorney as George Floyd and his whole family. Here's what is the most infuriating thing about that. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. We're going to get into all aspects of this because it's bullshit and I'm sick of it. Let's talk about all the GoFundMes and everything. They say that they're doing this for a cause. They say that they're out there with the rape whistles to warn them and everything else. How many of your immigrant neighbors feel like you're doing them a service? Because when you go home and you're with your kids tonight and you're playing games or you're watching TV or you're putting your 11 cats to bed, how many of those immigrants are getting away with it completely? You don't think that ICE is going to show up the next morning or at midnight when you're sleeping? You're not doing them any services. That's not helping your neighbor. That's getting you on the news. That's giving you something to do. Some of you are paid agitators, but some of you are just doing it because you're plain assholes, quite frankly. I don't think anybody that's doing this for their neighbor, that's productive. Can you tell me one thing that came out of the George Floyd situation that ended up being productive? The attorney, if you go back and read the stories when he was hired, he said, we're doing this not for the money, but for the principle, so that this kind of violence doesn't erupt in this city again. Really? How'd that work out for you, friend? How'd that work out for you? They burned the fucking city down when it happened with George Floyd. And now they're stealing ICE agent cars. They're getting in and stealing their weapons. They're abusing the ICE agents. They're doing all the things that they're doing. They're rioting. They're burning the cities down. You've got mayors and governors across the country that are saying, go and take it to the streets. You think those people give a shit if you come home today? Listen to me. Walsh and Frey went out to Renee Good, her memorial, and they stood out there in the crocodile tears, and he gets on TV and he's so saddened that one of his constituents lost their lives. You guys follow my TikTok. It's JENNL124. I did an entire TikTok about this. I named 4 or 5 different Minnesotans. One of them was brutally raped by a man in Minnesota. This was in 2024. She was a landlord. Her name's not been released because of the nature of her crime. Another woman was she was beheaded. And there was another young couple, 18-year-olds, that were killed by a drunk driver. This is all in Minnesota in the last 18 months. Where's their GoFundMes? Where's the vigils? Where's the memorials? Where's the outrage from the women's rights people about the one that was being raped, brutally raped, about the one that was beheaded? We don't care about those people. We only care about the ones that are fighting ICE agents. Those are the ones that we're going to stand up for. This is why I'm sick and fucking tired of all of this. Listen to me. I have problems with ICE. I do. I've seen some footage and I've watched it all. And I feel like sometimes it's abusive and sometimes it's aggressive. And I feel like when people have not had their documentation or their paperwork on them, people have been detained. And that makes me sad. It does feel like a Gestapo in that way. You have to understand, I'm looking at all avenues, but you also have to understand that these people are in the position that we are in because there was such an influx that's literally millions. It's out of control. It's out of control. There has to be, somebody's going to turn off the faucet. It's overflowed. It's leaking. It's coming through the roof. The roof is caving in. Okay. So something's got to be done. And at what point do we as Americans, as citizens, do we start coming more together instead of working against one another? You know, there is a way to do things and speak peacefully and do things in a legal way that is actually effective. Look, I'm not anti-ICE, okay? And I mentioned this on my TikTok, but in Aurora, Colorado, 2 nights ago, they had a city council meeting, an anti-ICE meeting. And the people that went there to speak and that had the mic, anti-ICE, actually won their argument. That's what I call being productive. Whether I believe in what they were fighting, whether I disagree with the fact that they were anti-ICE, they have every American right to go and do that. And they did. And they were successful. You jackwagons that are on the street with your rape whistles, you're not successful. You're just a menace to society. You're providing and proving to do nothing. You're adding nothing to the argument. You're adding nothing to the table, and you're just pissing more people off. And the people are getting sick and tired of the lies. And then you get into the whole, let me just tell you something about the rape whistles. I am a sexual assault survivor, not 1, not 2, not 3, a multitude of times. I was abused and assaulted by 3 men of trust within my family on both sides of my family. Let me make it clear. None of them was ever my father. He's a gem of a man. But there were men in my family on both my mother's and father's side that assaulted me. Violently. I would have given anything as a little child in certain situations to have a way to cry out or maybe a whistle or something like that. These people are blowing so many whistles on the street that if I lived in Minnesota and I was taking an evening jog and I heard a rape whistle, do you think it would stop me to go and look and see if someone's okay? It wouldn't, because we become conditioned to it. So now what you've done is you've created the situation of the boy who cried wolf, right? That's what you did. You're now the boy that cried wolf because you're blowing your whistles over and over and over again. Some of it's to warn, who knows what the fuck you're doing it for. It's not proving to do anything, because you know what's funny? The actual illegal immigrants that you're blowing the whistle for and that you're wanting to warn them, they're at work. They're working for less than minimum wage. That's the irony of all of this. I think it's hysterical. And yes, I'm wearing my "they don't know what the fuck they're doing" hoodie today because I'm out of words. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing anymore, guys. Come on. So at the end of the day, you think that you're proving doing something with these rape whistles, and there could actually be a woman being assaulted in an alley because she's walking out of work at night and she's blowing her whistle, but now people are ignoring it. Why? Because they probably think it's some lady who identifies as a coffee table trying to piss off ICE. Way to go for women's rights. Way to go. Super effective. Super effective. I don't know what else to say. And there was one other point that I wanted to make out of this, because this is what happens with Republicans and Democrats. And you've got the very far left and you've got the very far right. I am appalled at some of the photos I've seen of Renee Good put up. That far right conservatives, I don't even want to call them conservatives. I just think that they're just far right lunatics. Genuinely. With these gruesome photos of Renee Good and, playing that song, Move, Bitch, Get Out the Way, like all these, it's petty, it's childish, it's disgusting. There was loss of life. I don't care if she put herself there. I don't care if she never thought she was going to get murdered that day. She thought she was going to stand up for a cause, whatever, but she lost her life. A life was lost. Again, I told you how I feel about how she ended up in that position, but there is nothing about me that finds joy in the loss of her life. But there is this argument of like when people say she was a mother and she had children and she had a spouse, which she didn't. She had a girlfriend that was dragging her all around to protests, but her spouse had died and her ex-husband was raising her other 2 children. So, they talk about that. And then they're like, well, what about Charlie? He had children. And so then you get this conservative liberal argument. Here's the difference between Renee and Charlie. Charlie was someone that was invited onto a campus to speak. He had a conservative movement where liberals and conservatives would come. Charlie Kirk's, one of the things that he said that I always loved, he said, the minute we stop talking is when violence ensues. And he's so correct. Nobody's talking anymore. They're just yelling at one another. Nobody's talking to one another. They're talking at one another. Nobody is slow to listen. And I mean, slow to speak and quick to listen. And we've let it get out of control. And so with these 2 situations, you have a woman who inserted herself. Again, it's not a matter of her deserving to die, but it's not even the same type of contrast. Charlie was invited. He was at an event that people came out to see, wanted to hear him speak, and some lunatic shot him from the top of a building. I'm not going to get into the debate about how Charlie Kirk died. I'm not going down the Erica Kirk, Candace Owens rabbit hole anymore, because who's to say? Let the good Lord shine light on that. And I hope we get solid answers to that. But at the end of the day, he was assassinated. He was assassinated in broad daylight, on TV, on live stream. Children saw it. It was so different. It was so different than someone that said, I'm going to go out and cause chaos and get in the way and get in the middle of a federal investigation where you have ICE agents with guns and high anxiety and all the things that are going on. It's 2 totally different. Again, did either one of them deserve to die? No, but people from the left, the things you would post, the teachers that lost their jobs, the people that said, well, he was a racist and a bigot and he was this and he was that. Well, is it okay for me to say, well, she was LGBTQ and she was an agitator? And no. Loss of either one of their lives is fucking deplorable. But this is going to stop. So I'm going to end this with you here today to say, how do we make this stop? Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. Let's find a way to help immigrants become legal. Let's find a way to vet the ones that are fucking terrorizing our country and stealing from us and get them out. And let's get people to go back home and not encourage them to go out on the street and agitate. I mean, just think of the word agitation. You're paid agitators. That you're not helping. You're not helping your immigrant neighbors. The ones you want to help, you're not helping them. You know what I said? Until the government does come up with a program to make this a feasible thing for immigrants to come into this country, for the ones that don't have the money, here's the deal, friends. All the money that you far left liberals threw at Renee Good, it's almost $2 million. Think about if you took that same energy and instead of paying the girlfriend of a paid agitator who got in the way of a private investigation, and you guys took that money and set up funds to help your immigrant neighbors become legal, you might get my encouragement. You might get my vote. You might get me on your side. But right now, I think you're nothing but a menace and you're not helping anyone. So I'm going to leave you with that food for thought to think about. Know that I do love all of you. And I really hope, please share, spread this, get this out. Boy, if someone in government could see this and come up with some of the programs I've talked about to help these people, I really do have the heart to help, I'm not all about let's just get them out. That's just not where my heart's at. So let's find some solutions, friends. I adore all of you. Thank you for those of you that are following me. If you know, pass the word, share this, spread it around, spread it on X, all the things. And you can go to my, like I said, you can go to my JennX, I'm sorry, my JennL124, JennL124 TikTok, and you can find a lot of my followers there. And yeah, let's get the word out, guys. Let's do something productive. I love you. Have a blessed weekend, friends, and stay home.